Hi friends, welcome back to Rouse Rising. If you are new to the channel, I am Katie and I'm also the creator of ROWESRISING.com. I will leave that link down below in this video's description. It's where I share with you all some of my recipes. I'm still working on it, so bear with me. In this video today, I am sharing with you as a part of the 3 Rivers Challenge, my first week of the Pantry Challenge. This just includes some of the work that I did in the kitchen. I'm also sharing with you today a grocery haul and a medicinal remedy. I'm gonna share with you how we render lard and a meal that a friend brought to us because we didn't do a whole lot of cooking this first week in January because of Aaron's hospitalization. I wanna say thank you to all of you that kept us in your thoughts and kept us in your prayers. He's doing so much better now. He is home with us on the mend. He's still on a liquid diet. He's slowly introducing solids to bowel tolerance, to body tolerance, to pain tolerance. And he's also discovered slippery elm bark. So more on that on a later date. Today, I just wanted to go ahead and dive right into this video and share with you all my grocery haul from Fred Meyer's. Now, I know that I'm doing the Pantry Challenge, and typically with a Pantry Challenge, you try to not go to the grocery store. The problem that we ran into was having to take our kids to a babysitter's and things like that, and the kids being back in school, we needed some quick lunch items to fill their bellies, and we needed some easy foods that I could just take to someone's house to drop my kids off if I need a sitter in an emergency situation or whatever. Also, my plan was to do a big grocery haul before the Pantry Challenge just so we would have things like milk and eggs already in stock, but I failed to do that before a medical emergency. So finally, when I was able to get to the store, I did need to stock up on eggs and milk, and I just grabbed a few other things while I was there. My plan going forward for the rest of the Pantry Challenge is to super minimize any kind of grocery shopping because we do have everything we need to get us through the rest of the month. So I'm going to really minimize grocery shopping, just get what we need. Aaron, I know, has a few requests for his special diet, so in week 2, you will see a small grocery haul with a few items for him, as well as a few items that I needed around the house that I forgot. You know, life's just been nuts. So the Pantry Challenge, we're going to be working through a lot of this canned food behind me, as well as a lot of the canned food that we have in our other pantry shelves. We're also going to be working through some of our grains that we have. So you're going to see me cooking a lot with different variety of grains in this Pantry Challenge. I'm happy to share all of that with you all today or throughout this month. Today, I'm going to share with you what I did in the first week. I hope that you find some inspiration from that. Without further ado, let's get into this Pantry Challenge video. Okay, so I ran to the grocery store. Aaron just got out of the hospital and we needed a few staple items. I am doing the 3 Rivers Pantry Challenge this month. That means I'm only buying necessities, and these were the things that I needed for school lunches and breakfast and things like that. I want to talk to you guys about the price of groceries right now because I'm in sticker shock. I'm in complete sticker shock. I went to the restaurant supply store and got these cage-free eggs. This is a 5 dozen. It was $33, you guys. And also from the restaurant supply store, I got these 2 packs of salami. These were $14 each. I think the price used to be either $9.99 or $10.99 for these. So I grabbed 2 of those for snacks and charcuterie boards. I don't even know how to say that, but we do a lot of snack plates for the kids, and we'll throw on a few pieces of salami with some sourdough, some cheese, some fruit, and call it a snack plate. So these 5 dozen of eggs were $33, and then I'll go over, I think these were $7.59 each for an 18 pack. The price of eggs is astronomical. Our stores still have eggs, but they are very expensive right now. So I believe it's $5.99 for a dozen of large brown cage-free organic eggs. So yeah, the cost of eggs is insane right now. I've heard a lot of people say they don't even have any eggs at their stores, or the white eggs are $5 a dozen. The cheap eggs, you know, the grade A large generic eggs are a dozen. So these are all of our organic milks. We, I don't know how long this is going to last us. I would say this is going to last us for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll have to go back and get more. But I also have a little bit of milk frozen in my deep freezer, and I also have some powdered milk that we have been using. So I need to use through the milk in the freezer, and then I'll probably save the powdered milk. I use that for hot cocoa mix, and I recently shared a hot cocoa mix recipe with you guys, so I'll link that down below in the video's description. These were $6 a piece, if I remember correctly. I'm just shocked at the price of this grocery haul, so I'm going to tell you guys what the cost of my grocery haul is at the end. But if you want to go ahead and leave your guesses for how much I spent on all of this stuff down in the comments below, do that, and then I will tell you what my grand total is at the end. I grabbed some Simple Truth sausage patties and pork sausage links. I grabbed 3 packs of the sausage patties and 1 pack of the links. We do these for breakfast a lot, so we'll do 1 pack of these and a whole bunch of eggs and some fruit, a smoothie or whatever for breakfast. Then over here we got 2 bags of the 3 pounds of cuties. They had organic ones, but they didn't look like they were in that greatest shape, so I just got the conventional ones. We use lemon juice in our electrolyte drink, our homemade electrolyte drink with Redmond's Real Salt. So we needed to restock on that for the month or the next 2 months, and so we got 3 bottles of that. I should keep better track of how often we go through those. I would say 1 bottle lasts us about a week. I just use a splash of it when the kids make it for Aaron. I think they go a little heavy. We've got 2 bags of Mission tortilla chips. Those are going to go in the kids' lunches. These are going to go in the kids' lunches. Also, baby carrots, it's a big bag. So this is a 2-pound bag, and then we got another 2 pounds bag of whole carrots. Those go in my soups and stews. Same thing with the whole head of celery. That's for all of the winter cooking soups and stews. Thankfully, I have a whole bunch of broth in my refrigerator already for Aaron. I've got 2 jars. I've got one in my outside fridge, but I've got 2 jars of those ready to go for him to drink on for the next couple days. Here we have, I already told you guys about the salami from the restaurant supply store. All the rest of these groceries came from Fred Meyer's. So we've got our 3 bunches of bananas for smoothies, for baked goods and things like that. We got a huge pack of fruit snacks. Those go in the kids' lunches. And then you saw the 3 large 18 packs of eggs. I bought all the eggs that they had. This kind of eggs. They had the smaller 12 packs and they had a whole bunch of other eggs. But I got the last 3 of those. So where did I put my receipt, you guys? I'm going to put my total across here because once again, Mom of 5 life, I can't find it. So I'm going to locate it. I do know that this pile, this 5 dozen eggs and these 2 $14 things of salami, they were like $14.89 or something like that. So we'll just call them 15 bucks. Was $63. This little teeny tiny pile of food was $63. Can you believe it? Insane. Oh, I just found my receipt. I had to pay the babysitter, so I took some cash out to catch up on paying the babysitter for the last couple days. She did not require payment, but we blessed her because she blessed us. So we had to pay her for the last couple days. And the total was $25.42. $25. I mean, sorry, sleep deprivation is real. The total from both stores was $188.42. My goodness, I could not spit that out if you paid me. Can you believe that, you guys? For this little teeny tiny haul, my mom would fill her grocery cart for 7 kids. She would fill it to the brim for about $60. I remember that. And this was a teeny tiny grocery cart full, like one of those little tiny carts full of groceries. Unreal. This will get us through probably the next 2 weeks or so. We've got lots of vegetables in the freezer. We have meat in the freezer that we're going to be using up that we did in our last Azure haul. And yeah, so this is just to fill the gaps with some fresh stuff. And we have lots of canned and other items in our freezer that we are going to be using up for this pantry challenge. Next up in this video, I need to clear out my freezers. I have a ton of elderberries I need to deal with, so we're going to be making some elderberry syrup together. This is when I'm mixing in the honey, but we'll get to that here in just a little bit. We also have a whole whole lot of pig fat that's been hanging out in my deep freezer. Every 6 months or a year, I render more pig fat into lard. We just ran out of lard right around the holidays, and with the hustle bustle of the holidays and everything else going on, it's time for me to tackle this massive quantity of lard. I'm not going to get to all of it today, but I am going to render enough to get us through the next couple of months, if not the next year. So we're going to work on that, and then I might be rendering some more just to give to friends, because we really need to work through this pig fat. It has been in our deep freezer for about 2 years. It doesn't appear to have any frostbite or anything weird going on with it. It still looks like it's in great shape. It doesn't have an odd smell. It's great. It's perfect to go. So I'm using my KitchenAid, and I'm actually time-lapsing this video for you all. So no, my KitchenAid's not going that fast. I'm not moving that fast. This is a very slow process because I'm working with frozen lard. In just a minute, I'm going to get Aaron's help, and he's going to stand here and he's going to do the part of pushing the lard through the meat grinder for me, because this is actually wearing out my shoulder. I've got an old motocross injury on my right shoulder with massive bursitis, and just cutting this lard alone was enough to leave me in pain for the next week. So we're going to get through this together, and he's going to help me with the grinding of this, and then we are going to stick it all in this crock pot where it is going to render down. So I turn it on medium heat or high heat and let it cook and cook and cook. And once it starts boiling and bubbling and these pieces of fat kind of wither down into nothingness, we are going to be straining the bits out. The cracklin is what it's called once it gets to that point. But here it is bubbling. It has a ways to go now. I forgot to show you what it looked like when it's nice and crackling, but you can see the lard is just boiling away in my crock pot. And I am going to strain it through cheesecloth that is draped over a fine mesh strainer, a stainless steel strainer. And I wish I had a stainless steel funnel. I do, but I'm not using it for this task. We're using this plastic one, and we're just going to put the lard into this large jar, and this jar is going to go in the refrigerator. I'm using an old pickle jar for this, so I'm able to recycle some old jars that I've saved for my lard, and I'm going to show you all the different jars of lard that I accumulated from this one crock pot full. Now I know you can cook your lard in a large roaster. I wasn't in the mood for that today. It requires a whole lot of elbow grease, a whole lot of work to get through that much lard. So on this particular day, we just did the crock pot full. I'll probably do another crock pot full, but that is my workload limit when it comes to rendering lard. I have found this amount works great for our family, and it keeps us going for about a year. So once it's all strained through, you don't want any solid bits left in your lard, because if you leave solid bits, they will go rancid in the lard. So you need to make sure that you are getting a pure, no chunks, chunk-free. You just want the pure fat, the pure lard rendered. So some of these look a little different in color. It's just because they've started to cool, and so they're going more opaque. And then in the morning, they're going to be completely solid, and I will store some away in the freezer, some in the refrigerator, and some on the counter for use in the near future. Also, I have all these elderberries that I harvested back in the late fall. I think I went sometime in October, and I shared that video with you guys. We went together and harvested some elderberries. So what I do is I harvest them and I immediately bring them home and throw them in the freezer. And that serves two purposes. It firms the berries up so that I can de-stem them, and it kills all the bugs, because elderberry bushes are loaded down with bugs. So you want to make sure that you are freezing them, killing off all the bugs. Then you're able to shake the bugs down to the bottom of the bag, and you're able to de-stem the berries without crushing them. And then you can wash the bloom off. I always wash off that bloom that is on the elderberries, otherwise it leaves a film on my syrup. So right here to my crock pot, I am adding some ginger that I freeze dried. We're also adding some whole cloves, and then this Ceylon cinnamon that I got from Azure Standard. So I think I'm either tripling or quadrupling my recipe that I've shared with you all on my channel, but I do have an elderberry syrup recipe on my channel. and you can adjust that to your taste, to your liking. I'm not strict with recipes, and you don't have to be either. A lot of people add orange peels or lemon peels and a bunch of different things to their elderberry syrup, but this is just the basic recipe that I have made for the last, about 10 years now. I've been making elderberry syrup. So once they have cooked and simmered for about 45 minutes, I will mash up the berries with my potato masher. I do cover the berries. I don't even cover them. I just fill up the water to the level of the berries, and then I let them cook. And then I mash them really well to get out all of that goodness. And then we strain them the same way that we did with the pig lard. I strain it through cheesecloth, through a fine mesh metal strainer to get out all the seeds, because the seeds in elderberries are toxic. I know someone's going to comment down below. Yes, you do need to be careful with the seeds because they will cause some stomach upset, stomach distress. And then once the elderberry syrup is cooled to warm, I add my honey, and then I give it a good mix to make sure that it is mixed really, really well together. And voila, that is how I make my elderberry syrup. I don't add the honey when it's boiling hot because we do not want to denature the raw aspects of the honey. And then I keep these in my refrigerator for up to 3 months. I make sure that I'm using them every day. This looks really liquidy right now, but when I refrigerate it, there's so much pectin in these fresh berries that this kind of turns into a liquidy jelly. So it turns into like Jell-O if it melts a little bit, you know? So it's a little bit too thin to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but it's kind of too thick to be a syrup. However, we do put it on our pancakes. It is delicious on pancakes and waffles, but we mostly use our elderberry syrup medicinally. So we take it daily, we take a dose, and that helps boost our immune system. It helps fight the flu. It helps give us lots of antioxidants. Elderberry syrup is such an amazing thing that we can incorporate into our wellness regimen. Now, I do recommend doing like a 2 week on, 2 weeks off when you're using your elderberry syrup, or use it just if you feel a tickle in your throat, you start to feel sickness coming through. Right here, you can see that I'm not using a cheesecloth. I'm just using the fine mesh strainer because that works fine for me. I don't mind if there's extra berry bits in our personal elderberry syrup. I'm careful to strain it through the cheesecloth for my clients who purchase elderberry from me. But the kids and I, we don't mind some extra bits of elderberry particles as long as all of the seeds are removed. So you'll notice that when these settle in your refrigerator, there will be some sediment at the bottom. You always want to shake your elderberry jars before you consume them. And then I think I made 2 quarts and 2 pints out of that batch of elderberry syrup. Next up, so this is the first week in January during my pantry challenge that I'm doing with the 3 Rivers Homestead. Yes, she has a 3 Rivers pantry challenge, and I had this in my really cold refrigerator for the week after Christmas, and just now we are getting to making broth with it the very beginning of January, which worked out perfect because this was like a day before Aaron went into the hospital. He had been feeling really bad, and actually you see him back there in the background, and he's debating what he's going to do with himself because he's not feeling well that day. But that was before the vomiting and before everything else started for him. So he's just kind of moseying around the house, and I am getting some broth together because in my mind, the broth is going to be the cure-all, right? I'm going to fix my husband up. I'm going to make him this turkey broth with these chicken feet and all the good stuff, and I'm going to get his gut fixed up. At least that's what I'm thinking in my mind. I'm like, honey, it's okay. I'm going to get you some broth. We're going to get you better. At least that's what I was thinking in my mind. I thought I could fix it. I could resolve it. He was doing everything at this point to try to get relief. And we could go into all kinds of details, but this is actually a food pantry vlog, so I'll spare you all the details of Aaron's hospitalization. I will tell you that he is home and he is on the mend now, and we discovered slippery elm bark, and I'll share more about that with you all in the future, but that has given him a whole lot of relief. Okay, right here I am adding a bunch of garden herbs that I dried from my garden this summer. We've got some rosemary, some thyme. I think I even added some sage, I'm not sure what else is there, a bunch of herbs from my garden, and I'm just throwing the gamut in there because why not? It all smells so wonderful, and there is so much flavor in this broth. It has been wonderful. We've been drinking on it for the last week, and we are almost out of it. So it is almost time for me to start breaking into our broth that is on our shelf in our jars. So like I said, this was at the beginning of January. I had to use up that turkey carcass to make broth because every bit counts. We use up every bit of food that we can. The cost of food is so astronomical right now. So here is everything in our pot. This is going to simmer on the stove top for the next 24 hours. I prefer to do my broths in the Instant Pot, and I just let them go for way longer. They just stay on slow cook low for a few days. You have to be careful using a stove top with this method, just particularly because we have a gas stove top, and if the flame happens to go out, then our whole house can fill up with gas. So just be mindful and be careful of your cooking practices when you do these longer cooks on your stove top. So this is the next day. Everything is looking beautiful. It's looking delicious. So I'm actually going to take out this turkey and try to see if we can get any meat off of it that we're going to enjoy. Then what I'm going to do is just pour off the broth from the bones, and then we're going to be putting it in our large half-gallon mason jars, and then I'm also going to be canning some of this. So some of it's going to go on our pantry shelf that we will eventually get through in our rotation, but my plan is once the fresh broth in the large half-gallon jars is used up, we are going to start using all of the broth that is in my pantry, and we're going to start with the oldest broth first, and that's what we're going to be using. Now, I do have a couple of chickens left in my freezer, so if I get to those chickens during this pantry challenge, I'll be making more broth. That's just how it works out. If we eat the chickens with the meat, I either will make more broth or I'll throw the carcass back in the freezer. Typically, I just go right on ahead and make broth, especially in the wintertime, because we can just drink it right up and use it right up right then. Now, this turkey broth, it made so much broth that there's no way that we can consume this much broth before it goes bad. So yes, I did need to preserve it for longer shelf-stable storage. So that's what we're doing right now. I just use my large ladle to get it manageable in this plastic pitcher. If I had a glass pitcher that poured well, I would be using that, but I don't. So I just put the broth briefly into the plastic pitcher. I add my 1 full teaspoon of Redmond's real salt to my glass jar. Now these jars were warming, sterilizing in my oven at 250 degrees. So I take them out of the oven, I put them on my countertop, I throw in the salt, I throw in the broth, I wipe the rim, I put on the lid, finger tight with the lid rims, and then they go right into my pressure canner where they will process, and then they will pressurize and pressure cook at a certain PSI according to my elevation here. We are at 4,000 feet elevation, so you want to make sure you're following your canner's recommendations and guidelines for your pressure canner. I follow the book that my Presto canner came with, and for a long time, I was processing broth because I would have bits of meat in it. I was processing my broth for 90 minutes, and then so many of you lovely subscribers were like, why are you doing 90 minutes? You only need to process your broth for 20 or 30 minutes, whatever it is. So I'm a little bit loose with it. So let's be real. This sat in there and pressurized for 30 minutes. I set my alarm for 20 and then gave it a little bit extra. Once I turned off my timer, I let everything sit in there and cool off and naturally depressurize because I was not in a hurry to pressure can more items. This was it. I am removing those from the stove top, and they are going to sit here on the counter, and I'm going to remove the rings and clean the jars and then store these on my pantry shelf. But first, you have to write the dates on them. So we will be writing the dates and the contents. I want to make sure that I label this turkey broth so that I can distinguish between my turkey broth, my chicken broth, and my beef broth, because sometimes they're all the same color. Believe it or not, sometimes my beef broth does look like a turkey or chicken broth. So always label your cans. And I will be writing on the lids in the morning. Once these are completely cooled, then I can take off the rings, I can wash the jars and be all set. But you can see these are still bubbling and boiling on the inside. They are still quite hot. So they're gonna just sit here undisturbed for the next day on my countertop on this towel. Boom, broth is done. If you are new to canning, you may be wondering, Katie, why are you removing those rings? Aren't those a part of the lid storage system? They're not. You do not want to store your jars with the rings still on, and there's a couple of reasons why. Number one is bacteria growth. If you have any bacteria trapped between the ring and the jar, that will continue to grow and fester and could compromise the seal of your jar and make your food unsafe to eat. The other reason is unnecessary pressure on the lids and the gaskets, and you don't want the ring to prevent you from noticing that a seal has broken or to cause a seal to be broken. You also want to be sure that you are not stacking your jars of food, your preserved glass jars of food, because that too can compromise the seals on your glass jars, which could lead to toxic botulism and other nasty microorganisms growing inside your jars. Okay, so now we're to the pantry restocking portion of this video. So I have dwindled down all of my baking supplies. Everything needs to be restocked at this time, and I have a bunch of bags of flour. I've got raisins, dried fruit, a variety of things that I need to restock. So this is my all-purpose flour. It's organic from Azure Standard, and I grabbed the 10-pound bags of this because I'm not going to mill my own all-purpose flour right now. Yes, I do have a grain mill back there. A lot of people ask, Katie, why don't you mill all of your flour? And well, convenience, because milling does take time. The mill is really loud, and with Aaron home full-time, I'm protective of his ears and of him having migraines. So when he's around, it's easy for me just to have flour that I can use or that he can use to make the kids breakfast without turning on the mill. And I also don't like to pre-mill a bunch of flour for a variety of reasons. So at this season in our life, with the little ones and everything we have going on, we are, of course, in this big transition that we're in, we are just going to have some of our food is going to be made with already milled flour. So here is the whole wheat bread flour that I also get from Azure, and I believe this time I got a 20-pound bag of that. So I'm going to try to see how many containers this is going to take to fit in. You're going to see I'm going to start pulling out all my containers to store this bag of flour, because I don't just want to leave it in the bag. I feel like that's unsafe. I don't want bugs crawling in it. I know that we'll get through this bag of bread flour in the next couple of weeks because I make all of my homemade bread, or I make all of my bread here at home. So that's what you're seeing right now is, I opened up that bag of flour, and then I found this 2-gallon bucket of bread flour, and I was like, oh man, I already opened up the new bag of bread flour. So check your stock, check your inventory, because like I said, I still had another 2-gallon container of bread flour. I didn't need to open up my bag just yet, but if you guys are curious about my daily loaf of bread recipe, I will link that down below. I always link it down below in my video's description, because you guys see me making this loaf of bread quite a bit on my channel. Sometimes I use fresh milled wheat, and for that I would advise you to add something to make your fresh milled wheat a bread flour. I have some, is it citric acid? I have some kind of acid in a small pill bottle that I do add to my flour when I make fresh milled wheat bread flour, because it does help. You do have to add something. You can add whey, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm saying citric acid right now, but it might be some other kind of citric acid powder stuff. But you need to add something like that to your bread flour to help it form gluten. To your fresh milled flour to help it create gluten when you go to stretch and fold your bread. Otherwise, your bread is going to be more like a cake, and it's not going to have that togetherness. It's not going to have that gluten formation that makes bread delicious bread. So one of the subscribers, one of you had asked me if I added anything to my fresh milled flour, and I commented that I didn't, but I haven't made bread with fresh milled flour in about a month or so. So I had a brain glitch, but yes, I do. I have a little container of citric acid that I do use for my fresh milled daily loaf of bread when I use the fresh milled flour. I'm not sure if I go over that in my recipe of my video. I think I discovered that you were supposed to do that after the fact when I made that video originally, but you guys just bear with me. It's a whole learning process. This whole fresh milled grain process is all new to me. So yes, we're still using some bags of flour. I will leave a link down below also for Azure Standard for those of you that are interested. Many of you have signed up for Azure and are using them now to buy organic bulk groceries. It's a great resource for that. If you're like me and you live in a remote town, you probably don't have access to bulk or organic groceries. The nearest Costco is about 2 hours away over a wintry mountain pass that's very dangerous, so we don't do that. So I have to order a lot of our bulk goods. It saves us money in the long run. So there is an upfront cost to ordering bulk organic goods. But like I said, I'm not running to the store and buying flour every single month. So it works out really well for our family to buy organic because we are a family of 7. So you saw I refilled our mango. That is one of our snacks that we have. Now I'm refilling raisins. That's another snack that we have. We put these on snack boards. We pack them in lunches. We eat them by the handful, put them in our granola. We also do this with the apple juice infused craisins. Those are another delicious snack that we keep in our home. We go through about a 5-pound bag of each every other month. So 10 pounds of fresh dried fruit every 2 months. It's probably more like 3 pounds because I'm going to include the mango in that. So every couple of months I am re-upping our dried fruit and restocking it. So look, I found another gallon plastic container for some of my bread flour that I mistakenly opened this month. And these are honey containers, those plastic containers. That is what I get 12 pounds of honey in, and then I save the containers to use for food storage, and it works really well for food storage in my house. Yes, rodents can chew through that plastic, so you don't want to leave those types of plastic containers in your garage or anywhere else. So then we're just going to continue filling up glass half-gallon jars with our bread flour. My goal is to not have any bread flour in the bags sitting around because we are prone to weevils and different little bugs that can get into flour. So I'm very protective. I haven't had an issue here, but there was a time in my pantry when we first moved into this house where I discovered weevils, and I think they're called weevils. I don't know. They're like these little worm bugs. And I went through and purged everything, did a complete cleanse and cleaning of my pantry, and I have not had a single problem since. I also freeze my grains and my flours and things before I use them or take them out of the bags. I pop everything into the deep freezer for a couple of days to a week. And some of you have asked, does that create a condensation issue on my grains? And I haven't noticed any issue here. I do leave those bags to acclimate in the garage after I remove them from the freezer. Our garage is really cool, so I take the bags out. I set them on a rack in the garage. They acclimate there for a day or two, and then I bring them inside and process them, put them into separate containers, writing the dates on my containers. So right here you see that I am vacuum sealing all of these glass jars of bread flour. That's to prevent any larvae, eggs that are present in the flour from hatching. We're just removing all of the oxygen. Yes, I did stick this flour in my freezer, but I'm still being extra cautious with my food storage. If I wanted to take it another step, I would put oxygen absorbers in these glass jars, but because I'm going to be using through this flour in the next month or two, I'm not concerned about putting oxygen absorbers in there. You can see I'm using a trick that I saw from Rose Red Homestead where she puts another mason jar lid into the vacuum sealer, and that helps prevent the original lid that's on the jar from popping off when you remove the vacuum sealer, because sometimes there can be some issues with that. So I am resealing this other jar because it had some flour on the rim and it did not seat the seal correctly. So we've got to redo that one, making sure that all the air is sucked out of the jar completely. That ensures that we are getting, that we are preventing any types of bugs from growing in there. Again, hopefully the freezer killed off those larvae, those little eggs and all of those things. And this flour is going to be safe for long-term storage, 6 months to a year. Typically with flour, you don't want it to sit out because as soon as you mill your flour, it starts to denature. Okay, so that lid was actually on really good, so I checked it. I'm going to have to reseal it. Here we go again. Katie's taking the long way. I've just been not thinking clearly. And yes, this was the very first day of January. So my videos are a little bit out of order just because I'm trying to make this video cohesive for you guys. So I'm putting things in where I think it's going to be interesting in the video to keep your attention. I hope this is keeping your attention. So yes, on the very first day, this is New Year's morning, I was going through and restocking my pantry with all of the dry goods that we were going to be needing for the next month or two. So you can see I have quite a supply of flour here, but we go through it quickly. When Aaron makes pancakes or when I make pancakes, we double our recipe, or when we make waffles. So we will use up to 6 cups of flour at a time. So that is nearly a full half-gallon jar of flour. So yes, we do go through quite a bit of flour in this house because we make everything from scratch, and that's what happens. So when you see my grocery hauls, when you see that I don't have bread products and I don't have frozen waffles and I don't have all of these things in my grocery hauls, it's because we make everything from scratch. So if you're new to my channel, I try to focus on foods made from scratch, but again, in my grocery hauls, you occasionally see convenience foods because just like you, I am human too. So here is some yogurt, some frozen blueberries, and some granola. That is my fresh homemade baked granola that I made with you guys in my last vlog. So check that out. And this week we are just enjoying it on some yogurt with some blueberries. Now, I'm not sharing a whole lot of meals with you from this first week of the pantry haul because my husband's been hospitalized and it's been a crazy week. So we had some meals brought to us. So I'm going to share with you the meals that were brought to us. But first, I'm just going to show you, I made the kids some homemade mac and cheese. Mac and cheese is super easy to make. I'm going to use this grass-fed cheddar cheese, some milk, some stuff. I'm going to make a roux. The roux goes on your cooked noodles and peas. The kids also had hot dogs on this night. This was a quick and easy fast food night for them. We had the hot dogs in the freezer. The peas were in the freezer. We were all set. So then all chaos broke loose. Aaron ended up in the hospital, and then friends brought us a meal when he got out of the hospital. They made us chicken pot pie and then this lovely peach cobbler peach crumb. Oh, it was amazing. It was so good. And the kids had it with ice cream. I had a bite to taste everything, but because it had dairy in it, I couldn't eat it. Then when Aaron was home and ready to eat, he thought, well, I'll make some mashed potatoes because maybe these will be okay on my stomach, a nice soft food. He made a delicious pot of mashed potatoes. I threw a big old chunk of butter on top just to make it look beautiful. And then he ate some of these and they did cause him stomach distress. So he went right back onto his liquid diet for the rest of the week. And then as I'm voicing over and editing this video, we are already in week 2 of the pantry challenge, where I am actually staying home, minimizing my grocery shopping, making foods from the pantry. We are going to work through all of our fresh fruit, and we are going to start using up our canned applesauces, our canned fruits, the cans that we have in our prepper pantry that we have been storing for the last year. So stay tuned. Make sure you click the subscribe button. This loaf of bread turned out really good. So sometimes I don't mess with it at all and it turns out nice. And then sometimes it doesn't, like last week's, or not last week's, the other day when I showed you guys my last loaf of bread, my last video. So yeah, so sometimes it turns out beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me today on this pantry challenge video. I know I didn't share with you a whole lot of recipes or cooking. That's the way life is when you have a family medical emergency, but there's a few things I was able to put together for you all. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned because I have a lot more pantry challenge coming up now that we're all home and recovering. Until next time, you all, bye.